5 Live Formula One.
The grid is set for the Dutch Grand Prix and the party atmosphere is well and truly underway here in Zandvoort. I'm in the paddock, we're basking in sunshine, people are enjoying a cold beverage, and I'm joined by the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson to look back on that qualifying session because, Andrew, I think it's fair to say we went into it with quite a lot of expectations. We thought McLaren were going to be battling at the front. We thought Lando Norris would have the advantage. We knew it would be close. But it was Oscar Piastri that took pole position.
It's been so tight all year, Rosanna, and it was really, really tight today. 0.012 seconds was the gap between pole and second today, and on their final laps, which neither of them actually improved, it was 4 thousandths. Norris was actually quicker on the final laps, but it was Piastri pulled it out on the first laps, and you're absolutely right, he hadn't looked like he was going to do it all weekend. Norris has been quick from the minute they hit the ground in first practice, and Piastri was talking about how much work it's taken him to get there, but you know, it befits his season and how impressive he's been that he's finally pulled it out. And actually Lando Norris was kind of ruining it because he was a bit worried with overtaking so difficult around this track that his chances are pretty much already gone.
Also joining us on the Chequered Flag podcast are our lead commentator Harry Benjamin and the reigning F1 Academy champion Abby Pulling. Harry, before qualifying got underway, we were chatting about who might take pole position. Would it be Norris? Would it be Piastri? And I said, don't rule Piastri out because he likes to build over the course of a weekend. And Harry, that is exactly what he did. No one, I think, saw it coming because Norris had the stronghold, hadn't he?
You nailed it, Rosanna. You absolutely nailed it. And fair play, I think I have to say I was leaning more towards Norris because of that final practice session where he did put a little bit more daylight between himself and Oscar Piastri, not to mention, off the back of last year as well. Norris had such a good weekend all in all, taking the win. But you have to say it just highlights what an amazing battle we are enjoying right now. I think we've got two all-time greats battling it out at a revitalised McLaren over the last couple of years. This is going to go all the way to the end. It's nip and tuck. As you were saying, 12 thousandths of a second, less than a blink of an eye. And yes, I know overtaking is difficult, but we've got strategy options available tomorrow. We've got one small mistake and you're in the gravel and there's chaos. So I think we're set up for an absolute barnstormer.
Oh, I hope we are. We often upsell these things. I hope we're not overselling it. Abby, I guess you enjoyed that qualifying session as well. This track is so difficult. We've seen it bite over the course of the weekend with some of the most experienced drivers finding themselves in the gravel. People, apart from Lance Stroll, managed to sort of keep it clean. But how impressed were you with how Piastri managed that session?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really, really nail-biting session. I mean, again, I agree with everything Harry said. These two, the inter-team battle between Oscar and Lando is really, really impressive, and it's one of the closest seasons we've had in a long time. So excited to see how the rest of the year plays out. But I mean, it wasn't all smooth sailing in Q3. Both of them set their times quite early on, making mistakes on their later laps where maybe when Oscar made his mistake, Lando could have prospered and vice versa. But they both, letting the pressure get to them a little bit. Obviously, the wind here at Zandvoort as well. It's a tough circuit, and just biting them when it counted a little bit.
Oscar Piastri just improving when it mattered, saying that he's just a better driver this year in the media pen a short time ago. He came and had a chat with me as well, and I explained, we were all thinking he was building through the weekend, and was that all part of his plan? And this is what he had to say.
This weekend's gone exactly how I planned it. Not really. It's been a bit of a struggle, honestly. There's not been anything dramatically wrong or tough, and there's been flashes of good moments, but it's just never really come together at the right moment until Q3. So I'm glad I chose then to get it together, but it has been a bit of a tougher weekend until that point. So I'm very happy that with all the work that we did to try and make the car a little bit better. It was always felt good this weekend, but making that a bit better and then trying to help me improve my driving.
This was one of your worst tracks, I would say, last year. Have you actually been purposefully working on those worst tracks this year? Because it seems like they're all coming good for you in 2025.
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's largely coincidence that the worst tracks last year have been better this year. And there's been very different reasons for that, I would say. I think here, the story of this weekend was similar to the last two, in that, the last two, there's been moments where I was strong, but not really always that consistent, and not when I needed to be consistent. Whereas this weekend, I've been a bit more consistent when I needed to, and that's really been the difference here. So, I think it's more just a coincidence, and there's still a long race tomorrow.
Well, good luck tomorrow, because actually Lando said his biggest chance to win tomorrow was today. So if that helps your mind games, voila.
I'll take it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
That was Oscar Piastri talking to me just after taking pole position for the Dutch Grand Prix, and surprising a lot of people, because we had thought that perhaps Norris had the pace advantage this afternoon. But Andrew, it's interesting, isn't it? These tracks where he suffered and struggled a little bit last year, it feels like he has gone and worked behind the scenes to make sure they're not his bogey tracks anymore.
Well, I think he worked over the winter to basically put last year in the bin. Norris was easily the most impressive McLaren driver last year, even though Piastri won a couple of races. But this year he really hit the ground running. He had a hugely impressive first few races of the season. Norris has come back at him a little bit since Canada. Piastri's had a little bit of bad luck in the last couple of races. So the gap that's 9 points in the championship at the moment could easily be 37 if things had gone his way. Thankfully, for those of us who are watching, it isn't 37 points, it's only 9. And we've got another great race in prospect. There's weather on the horizon, potentially. It was supposed to be raining today. It only rained overnight. Now it's supposed to be raining tomorrow. It's a bit like England here, just over the North Sea, of course. It's anyone's guess what the weather's going to do. But I think rain or shine, it should be a really close battle between those two. And then some way behind them will be everybody else.
I think what Piastri is doing, though, is just so impressive. How he's able to, as you've been saying, Rosanna, build for a weekend, but not only improve as an overall driver for this season. We look at his tyre management for one. He's got this laser sharp focus. They have been massive improvements from this year compared to last. But also, if you highlight a couple of tracks where you may go, well, this is a more of a Lando Norris maybe favourite track this year. You go to Austria, you go to Spain, and if he hasn't beaten Lando, he's been incredibly close and much closer than he was last year. And it's almost those isolated things that I believe his engineer Tom Stallard has pointed out as well recently in the build-up to this weekend, where they've really seen some of the big progression from Oscar Piastri. And if he does romp away at the end of this year with a title in his pocket, as we believe we will absolutely get a brand new champion this year, whether it be Piastri or Norris, it will be, I think, the quickest rise up through the feeder series and into a Formula One World Championship since Lewis Hamilton did it. And he just continues to bring that cool, calm focus. But there are moments where he breaks. There are moments where he shows that frustration. I think back to Silverstone, where he was bitterly disappointed to lose out on the win. And I think that's actually given him a more of an edge now as well, which is powering him forward. So I honestly think if you're McLaren, I think if you're Andrea Stella, if you're Zach Brown, you are absolutely loving this, because they seem to be open and accepting of the fact that eventually they'll come together properly. I'm not calling Canada a proper coming together. They'll come together. Could be this weekend. We know how difficult it is to overtake. Will the frustration boil over? But they seem accepting of that. I think this is a team where you're going to have two drivers fighting out, and they have got the perfect environment to do that.
When you look at Oscar Piastri, Harry, it's really difficult to think that this is only his third season in Formula One. He's come on so much. It's like he's banked every bit of experience, and just over 2 years, and he's really making it all pay off for himself here. He has, I think, without question, been certainly the most consistent, and as a consequence, the most impressive of the two McLaren drivers. But you've got to remember his competition. Lando Norris, everybody accepts in the paddock, is incredibly fast as a racing driver. So it's quite a task that Piastri's got on his hands. And here he is with 10 races to go, leading the championship, looking every bit as cool and calm and collected as he always has. And it's really impressive to watch him.
I think as well, just Oscar going through the junior formulas, he's very new in his F1 campaign. It's his third year, but how he went through the junior formulas is very similar. That kind of ice cold, very deliberate, calm, cool and collected, and he's really showing that now at the highest level of the sport in Formula One, which I think is ultimately so impressive, because it's when the pressure is the highest as well. So for Oscar to have that against his teammate, more experienced, more ingrained within the team, Lando's been there for a long time now. So to have had that, jumped in the car and been, outperforming him at this rate of the season, being 9 points ahead, it's made out for such a great battle for us to watch and to continue to watch as they're starting 1 and 2 this weekend.
What I find funny is last year it was like, Oscar Piastri should be better by now. It's his second year in Formula One. He needs to up his game. Then fast forward a few months, it's like, look at him, how incredible. He's already fighting for a world title. It's funny how the narrative changes, isn't it? But this is his first pole position since the Spanish Grand Prix, which actually surprised me when I was looking at the stats. It's been quite a while since he's taken the fastest lap. But let's see how it all plays out tomorrow, because of course alongside him on the front row is his teammate and his title rival Lando Norris, who, as we've already spoken about, had the advantage going into qualifying. Andrew, I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was probably a change of conditions, maybe a little gust of wind. He's right there. I mean, we're talking 12 thousandths. It's nothing between them.
Yeah, I don't think Norris did anything wrong. I think Piastri just put it all together when it really mattered, and that's what's so impressive about his performance today. But, as you say, the gaps are so small. They've been so small all year. Piastri is, on average, quicker than Norris, but again, very small average advantage between the two of them. The competition's so tight, and it's really, we've not seen a close championship battle between teammates like this since, well, I can't even really remember. Maybe Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso back in 2007 at McLaren, although they had the Ferrari drivers, Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa, getting in their way. This time it's just Norris and Piastri. And Andrea Stella, the team principal, and Zach Brown, the chief executive officer, they're doing us all a massive favour by just letting them go at it. And they're really facilitating it in every possible way. They were giving them freedom with strategy, as we saw in Hungary a few weeks ago before the summer break, when Norris changed to a one-stop strategy and ended up beating his teammate, which I think midway through the race McLaren didn't, in fact even about 10 laps from the end of the race, McLaren didn't think was going to be possible, and yet there it was. So this is, although Norris was sounding a little bit downbeat earlier when he was reviewing the fact that it's like 1.5 seconds in terms of lap time delta that you need to overtake around here, in theory. As I said, there's some rain. It's certainly a long way from done as we stand here today.
And coming into this weekend, there's been a lot of talk about strategy, just as a standalone subject. Then you add in the McLaren sort of headache now, I guess, because the two sides of the garage are working in a sort of insular way, would you say? So when it comes to choosing between this 1 and 2 stop strategy, which we could see because we've got softer tyres and a faster pit lane speed, does it make it even more complicated for McLaren?
Well, they're not insular. That would be a misinterpretation. They're all working together up until the point that the race starts. So they go into the race, Oscar and Lando, Piastri and Norris, knowing what the other is planning to do in theory. But of course, the minute the lights go out, everything can change. You don't know what position you're going to end up in. You might make a bad start, as Norris did, or have a bad first lap, I should say, as Norris did in Hungary, dropped him down the field. That could happen to either of them tomorrow. Norris took the lead from second on the grid here last year. No, he won, from second on the grid here last year, but again, didn't make a great start. But what happens once the race starts, then Will Joseph and Lando Norris, that's Norris's engineer, and Tom Stallard, as Harry was mentioning, and Oscar Piastri, they're free once that gets going to choose what they want to do. They can offset their strategy, they can switch to a 2-stop, they can do anything they want, basically, as long as it doesn't harm the team's interests. And actually, we even saw in Hungary that they were prepared to potentially harm the team's interests. If we remember them on the radio, Piastri and Stallard discussing whether they wanted to beat Norris or try and beat Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, and Piastri said, I don't care about Leclerc, I only care about Norris. And that at the time was theoretically talking about throwing away a potential win just to beat his teammate. Those radio transmissions showed for the first time, I think, the real tension that there is within McLaren, and that's why I think it's a testament to Stella and Brown that they're letting them do this, because okay, they've got a massive lead in the Constructors' Championship. They could almost stop now and still win the Constructors' Championship. Even so, it takes a lot for a team boss to take this position and just let their two drivers to go at it, trust them, they're not run into each other, or at least not too often anyway, and just play out a championship battle, which for all of us is just thrilling to see. And them too, I think this is the point. Stella and Brown are enjoying it as much as we are.
Yeah, fans of the sport through and through, aren't they? Well, let's hear from Lando Norris. P2 for him, and I asked him if he knows where those 12 thousandths are out on this Zandvoort circuit.
Yeah, I had a gust of wind down the start finish, and I lost like 13 thousandths. Not really, I did. I mean, there's some little things I could improve. There's also things Oscar could have improved. So the most annoying is just, on the data, I'm up until out the last corner. I'm ahead, and then I just have more headwinds, and I lose pole position. So, in terms of visually, that's where I lose it. But there's a couple of corners where I just wasn't quite as quick as I needed to be, and that probably cost me.
Are you ready for the start tomorrow? Because I imagine that's your biggest opportunity to get Piastri off the line.
Yeah. I mean, we'll do our work tonight, and I'll go to bed and dream of the most perfect start in the world and hope for that.
Hope your dreams come true.
Maybe, we'll see.
That was Lando Norris speaking to me a little earlier in the media pen, and actually I have to tell you I was giggling a bit because a journalist standing next to me kept on, well, only asked it twice because there are two drivers to ask about it, but said to Norris and Piastri, it's very tight between you two. It's a little fight, yes? and both drivers agreed that yes, it is a little fight, but I think it's much more than that. It's going to be huge for whichever of them come off as the world champion at the end of 2025. As Harry said, it'll be a maiden world championship, whatever way. We think, because a little way off in the standings, Max Verstappen is 88 points behind Lando Norris. He's also behind the McLaren pairing on the grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix. P3 for the Dutch driver on home soil. And Harry, I mean, perhaps he was dreaming, or I don't think he really thought he was on for a pole position today, but there are a few Dutch Army, Orange Army hearts broken this afternoon, I think.
Yeah, I think so, but I actually think Verstappen will take that. I think it's been a bit of an under-the-radar weekend so far for Max Verstappen. He had that weird off after practice session at the end of the free practice session and going off into the gravel after his practice start. So to kind of come back from that, and with a car that, rewind a couple of weeks ago in Hungary was pretty woeful and was really struggling. I mean, Max Verstappen, he qualified 8th and raced his way to 9th place, and the Red Bull just looked like it wasn't on par with where we know that team to be, and has been, as we've been saying in the overarching narrative of this season, on the decline. So I think actually almost best of the rest, which unbelievably is 3rd after McLaren. I think he'll take that. Unfortunately, unless there's chaos ahead, I think it's a race for 3rd with Max Verstappen at the helm of it at the moment, and he will be a tough man to pass around here because he's the most successful man around here.
Yeah, I mean, after qualifying, he actually seemed really, really happy with his lap. I think there's a point where you know that you've been beaten to an extent. He knew that the maximum he could achieve coming out of that qualifying session was P3, just with where the Red Bull is compared to those pesky McLarens. It just seemed like that was the maximum he could achieve. So yeah, nice to see him be happy with P3, although he's probably not liking it at the moment, not wanting to be there. He knows that he's outperforming his teammate, as he always does, and putting that car as high up as he possibly can.
So I don't think Max Verstappen can win the race, as you're saying, Harry and Abby, but he can certainly cause some trouble. If he gets between the two McLarens on the first lap, then that's basically going to be the race won, probably, for whoever isn't passed by Max Verstappen. So that's another headache for Norris in second place, because you can bet that Verstappen will be going no holds barred, no quarter down into that first corner in front of his home fans. So plenty of headaches for Norris behind him as well as in front of him.
I think it's a strange one when a 4-time world champion set out to achieve P3 today on the grid. I think that's what must be so fascinating for his mindset to have to deal with and his approach. So let's hear from Max Verstappen, a sort of building process through the weekend, and I think happiest in qualifying, which of course is exactly the time you need to be happiest over the course of a Grand Prix weekend, setting yourself up nicely for the Grand Prix. P3 for Max Verstappen, here he is.
Qualifying, it all felt a bit more normal after the final changes that we made, so that was definitely positive. I think for us in general, that was a nice surprise finally, because everything that we changed up until that point was not really giving us anything, and we were going not round in circles, but it was a bit difficult to understand. I'm happy with what we did.
And what do you need tomorrow to stay with the McLarens, or are you envisaging it being a bit of a lonely race?
That will be hard. I don't think we have that pace, but targeting a podium I think is realistic.
That was the home hero, Max Verstappen. He'll be racing in front of his home fans. Can they give him extra horsepower tomorrow afternoon? He'll be lining up alongside, could it be his future teammate? Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls. What a performance. P4. Really outstanding stuff. He'd been in the garage for most of the practice session yesterday. They changed a PU and a battery between the FP1 and FP2 sessions. Had sensor issues in FP2, so was called to stop by his racing race engineer, Pierre Hamlin. And then he goes and puts it on P4. I mean, this rookie is really impressing, Andrew.
Yeah, Hadjar's already been regarded generally as the most impressive of the rookies this year, and there are quite a few of them. This has been the best performance of the year for him so far, not only in terms of numerical order, fourth is one place better than he's managed before, but just in terms of overall performance. His team boss, Alan Permain, called it a mega lap, and Alan Permain's worked with Michael Schumacher and Fernando Alonso, so he knows what he's talking about. Very impressive, as you say, Rosanna. He missed all of second practice yesterday, as they messed around with the engine. They changed it before the session, sent him out, and it didn't work immediately on the out lap. He had to park the car. That was the end of that. So that really put him on the back foot going into today. To recover from that is very impressive, as you say. And I think people are questioning who's going to be in that second Red Bull next year, as you're saying, Rosanna. The team boss has changed, of course. Christian Horner's been sacked now. Laurent Mekies has come in since the Belgian Grand Prix. He's a relative fan of Tsunoda. We've got to keep this in perspective. Tsunoda's no Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen. People were beginning to wonder whether Tsunoda had a chance, but I think Helmut Marko, the Red Bull Motorsport advisor, has always had his eye on Hadjar because he's had such a flying start to the season. This is only going to help Hadjar's case in terms of trying to get a Red Bull drive next year. The only issue is, does he really want it? Because it's a bit of a poised chalice, that seat, alongside Max Verstappen.
Well, I'm looking forward to when Hadjar lines up as a Red Bull driver next week and qualifies 13th. That for sure is looking likely. No, Hadjar continues to impress, doesn't he? I mean, ever since, actually Australia, he wasn't impressive, was he? And had that disaster at the start on the formation lap and spinning out due to the rain, had that emotional hug with Lewis Hamilton's father in the paddock. But what a roller coaster for Isaac Hadjar so far this year. But I tell you what, it's not just a bounce back for him this weekend with the issues that we've been talking about. In general, actually, he's done well, but the last few races, he actually hasn't scored points since Spain. He's had great qualifyings, but he hasn't been able to convert them into points, and that's not all down to him. It's down to the way strategy has played out. He's been unlucky at times as well. His teammate Liam Lawson has come on leaps and bounds, I think, over the last couple of races and has refound his form and is starting to challenge. So to come out and get fourth place right at the close of qualifying, where most drivers were losing time, I think is a fantastic result. Let's see if he can hold on to it for the Grand Prix.
Well, Lizette was saying he thinks he's got the best car when it comes to the midfield. He doesn't think he's going to be able to fight with George Russell and the Ferraris, but who knows? This track could afford him maybe some opportunities that he's not realising, given the difficulties there are to overtake around here, Abby.
Yeah, around here the most damage you can do is on the first lap into turn one is a really big opportunity, as any races, but you can also lose it on the first lap as well. So they'll be keeping that in mind. And then the next opportunity is turn three. On lap one, we'll be seeing a lot of people going low down. It's really hard mid-race to pull this move off, normally down to differing tyre life, so it makes it a bit easier. And then after that, the middle sector is just about hanging on. There's a lot of aero wash, makes it really hard to put the pressure on. And then the next opportunity is again into the chicane at the end of the long straight out the back. And then after that, it's again back to turn one. So it's going to be tough in the races, a lot to play on strategy. Again, if the race is wet, okay, then there's a lot more opportunities for overtaking.
I love how you say it's just about hanging on. That, quite frankly, terrifies me. The thought of just being in a Formula One car, just hanging on, Abby.
I mean, it's high speed out the back. It is a bit of hanging on.
You've got to watch out for a fox as well. We saw a fox out there today during the qualifying session.
Those Dutch foxes. Can we talk about the banging playlist, by the way, in the background? Absolutely loving the tunes.
It's Andrew Benson's commuter playlist, so we're really enjoying that.
Off my iPhone, Harry.
Knew it.
They know a party boy when they see one. Let's hear from...
You did see me last night, Rosanna, yeah.
I did see you last night, Andrew. What happens on tour stays on tour. Let's hear from Hadjar then. Thrilled with his P4 performance. Let's hear how he reflected on that session.
Yeah, it was a disaster yesterday, but at the same time, most of the time I feel more than ready to go after FP2, So I'm like, I may miss a free practice session, but in the end, we're F1 drivers. We don't need 50 laps to be on the limit, so that's why I wasn't really worried going into qualifying.
And do you think you've got a great race car for tomorrow as well?
compared to the midfield cars, yes, I think we have probably the strongest car going on to the long run. And then compared to George, the Ferrari, then it's going to be obviously very, very difficult.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Isaac Hadjar talking to me a little earlier on, and he completes the second row, lining up alongside Max Verstappen. Behind them, it's George Russell in the Mercedes, always there or thereabouts, but unable to mix it right at the front this afternoon. And then came the Ferraris, headed by Charles Leclerc. P6 for him and P7 for Lewis Hamilton. And it's fair to say they found this weekend incredibly difficult. So is P6 and P7 a fair reflection of where they are at the moment?
I think it is, Rosanna, basically. And I think actually Hamilton will be a little bit disappointed to be behind Charles Leclerc, because basically all weekend he's been just a little bit quicker than him. Leclerc's been struggling a lot and he's not been hiding it. Hamilton's been more comfortable since he got in the car on Friday morning. But he said that he came out to turn one on his final lap today and he'd already lost a tenth and a half, and he didn't really know why at this point. He was going to go back and look at the data. All in all, though, it's been a much more positive weekend for Lewis Hamilton. He wasn't exactly light and sunshine personified on Thursday when we spoke to him on media day, but but after qualifying today, he's a lot sunnier a presence, and he deserves to be, because it's been a really, really strong performance from him all weekend.
It's good to see, isn't it, Harry? Because I think there were quite a lot of people worried about him during the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend. I think the summer break came at a perfect time for him, and perhaps it's a reboot to get him through the next 10 races, because we know he's got more than half an eye on 2026 and what he can do with Ferrari come the rule changes.
Yeah, look, I mean, he also said those comments not long out of the car when you get into the media pen and all eyes are literally on you. And look, Lewis Hamilton, if anyone can reset and bounce back, it's Hamilton. And look, okay, things aren't going quite the way he would have wanted them to in this year with Ferrari. It is all about learning the team, learning the car, and getting to grips with his new surroundings. Because we said it time and time again, he's not just joining a new team; he's joining an institution, and he's joining a brand that is bigger than Formula One. And Lewis Hamilton is also a brand that is bigger than Formula One. So these are massive things. These are two massive things that are coming together and having to gel and almost start again from zero. He hasn't had any say in how the direction of this car has been developed from the previous year, and also there we are of the belief that this ground effect era has just not suited Lewis Hamilton, and he has lost that edge maybe to adapt. However, we go into 2026, which is why he has joined Ferrari with a reset, new regulations, and a team that has been restructuring over the last couple of years. That's what the eyes are on. But for the next 10 races, Hamilton will still be giving it his all. And yes, while a podium may seem out of reach tomorrow for Sunday's Grand Prix, and he will take that uncoveted stat, I believe, of the most Ferrari driver, the most starts for a Ferrari driver without a podium, I don't think that matters, and I don't think it will play on him. He's all about building, and he will continue to do that throughout the rest of the year.
And I think the problem with the Ferrari this weekend is that this track highlights their weaknesses. They're struggling with long corners, so it's almost one to damage imitation, would we say, this weekend for them, to keep building, making progress, not expect too greater things, and maybe focus on next weekend with Monza being their home race.
Well, there's been a bit of an open secret about the Ferrari this year, Rosanna. As the season's gone, it's become more and more open as a secret, and that is that they've been struggling with ride height. Basically, the car needs to run really low to be competitive, but the problem is if they run it as low as they would like to run it, then it wears the floor out too much, and that's what happened at the end of Hungary. Charles Leclerc lost a lot of pace. It's because they effectively raised the car by raising the tyre pressures, and he was backing off on the straights to stop the floor banging into the track. They didn't quite admit it in so many words, but they more or less admitted it on Thursday when because George Russell had mentioned that after Hungary, and Charles Leclerc said, well, it's more complicated than that, but he didn't deny it. And then I asked Leclerc after that, is it going to carry on all year? And he basically said yes, but we're going to manage it in a different way. So we're going to watch for that for the rest of the season. Ferrari beginning to lose pace in the races. They've basically got a choice. Do they go really fast for some of the race and then slow down, or keep a more steady average pace? We're yet to see how they're going to play that one out here.
It's just a lot to manage, isn't it? The unpredictability of the car, the inconsistency, you're worrying about the ride height. You can't put those sort of generational talents to show and to the forefront for everyone to see, and of course to then score points and big prizes for the team. So ones to watch, perhaps not so much this weekend, but just the progress that they are finally starting to make, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Behind them, Liam Lawson, the second racing Bull car. And on any other weekend, he'd probably be thrilled with that. But because his teammates a long way up the road in P4, he was frustrated. He knew that the car had bigger potential, but it would be a solid points haul, wouldn't it, Abby, for both the Racing Bulls to come home in the top 10 tomorrow?
I'm sure in the garage, the RBs and the whole team are over the moon with that result. I mean, yeah, Liam probably a little bit more down as Isaac had such a standout result. But I think for Liam, that is still a great result. And for the team as a whole, if they can have 2 solid point scoring positions tomorrow, it will be... helpful in that mid-pack championship in the constructors kind of fight. It's really close, and anything helps. Anything helps for that extra bit of money and prize money at the end of the season. So yeah, it's going to be tough for both of them to manage tomorrow. They've got really, really strong people around them, and especially with Isaac having Max next to him, that could be quite intimidating, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm sure Liam will be keep pushing on, showing RB what he can do. I think he seems a lot more comfortable in this team opposed to how he was at the start of the season in that cursed, if you want to call it, second Red Bull seat. He really seems happier, and we'll see tomorrow what it brings.
And behind him, Carlos Sainz in the Williams and Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. And both those drivers already talking about strategy options so they could perhaps disrupt a little bit. Carlos Sainz saying it's going to make it fun, the choice between the 1 and the 2 stops. So I'm looking forward to that fun playing out. I'll be in the pit lane. Can't wait for that.
Go to your seat on that one. Was that
yeah, absolutely. Grab your popcorn, guys and girls. And Fernando Alonso is saying that they've saved 2 hard tyres as well. So they've got a potentially different route to go down tomorrow afternoon compared to other competitors on the grid. So that's your top 10. Let's move it on to predictions, because I think the cars behind, there are a couple of big scalps, Yuki Tsunoda P12 and Kimi Antonelli P11, but both of those drivers are always on the edge, I think, of making the Q3 appearance. But who do we reckon then? We probably got it. Well, actually, no, I didn't get it wrong, did I? Because I thought Piastri was going to build and get pole position, but we got it a bit wrong, maybe as a team, thinking that Norris had the pace advantage going into qualifying. But what will happen in the race? If we got a crystal ball, how do you see it playing out, Andrew? Well,
look, Lando Norris, everyone's been talking about the momentum he's had coming into this weekend because he's won 3 of the last 4 races, but in an alternate universe, Piastri could easily have won the last 3 in a row. Silverstone, he got a penalty, which I think was a bit unfair, certainly controversial for braking behind the safety car. That gave Norris the win. And then in Hungary, as we know, the strategy's played out in a way that ultimately disadvantaged Piastri. But really, you would have thought, starting from pole and Norris dropping down to 5th on the first lap, he should have won that race too. It was a bit unfortunate for him the way it played out, although Norris did a great job to manage his tyres in the way that he did. So that's a long-winded way of saying it feels like Piastri's owed a win in a way, and I think he'll do it tomorrow.
Okay, what about you, Harry Benjamin? Give me your predictions, please, sir.
I'll keep it shorter, Piastri.
I think it's only possible to keep it shorter, right? Piastri, okay. And I guess the big question is almost P3. If it kind of plays out as we expect, the McLaren's kind of bolting off into the distance together, who's the podium filler?
I think Verstappen's going to get the final podium place.
The fight for 3rd.
What'll be interesting, I think, is the fight behind that. I suspect Hadjar will fall back to his normal level behind the 2 Ferraris and George Russell's Mercedes, and then there'll be an interesting fight between the 2 Racing Bulls cars and Sainz and Alonso. Alonso's looked really quick all weekend, and it kind of faded through qualifying. He was a little bit unfortunate, I think. I mean, this applies to all the drivers who weren't in the top 3. He was on new tyres for his final run at the very end of the session, and the track got slower right then, and he was the last one out. And of course, you've got Antonelli and Tsunoda right behind them in the Mercedes and the Red Bull, which in theory are quicker cars than Sainz and Alonso and the Racing Bulls, but they're behind them. So all that battle should be great. The battle at the front should be great. Just make sure you tune into 5 Live tomorrow. I
was going to say, Andrew, I'm sold. Where do I sign up to get a front row seat? Abby, what about you? Or Harry, do you want to give me your podium filler?
My podium filler is, I'm going to go for, actually, it's going to be Carnage, and Isaac Hadjar's going to get his first podium.
See, I don't know. I think if the weather is as it's been all weekend, it's been changeable. It could really put a spanner in the works. And I mean, what happened last time it rained? We got a Hulkenberg podium. So who knows? Who knows? I think obviously the McLarens are the ones to beat, but I think that third spot is up for debate.
Rosanna, you're the true oracle. Who's your third pick?
Your crystal ball.
Well, I'm going for Piastri P1. I'm going to go... Shall I shake it up and say it's not a McLaren 1-2? I think I might.
Be brave, why not?
I'm going to say Max Verstappen P2. And I'm going to say George Russell P3, and something's going to happen, and I don't know what it's going to be.
Sounds like the McLarens are going to run into each other.
Tarzan, what a place to run into each other.
What corner, what time? Like, tell us it all, Rosanna. You know all.
Can you imagine if I did? I'd be living in Mauritius, I think, if I did. Do you know what? I'm just looking at the weather radar on my phone, and it looks like there's going to be rain when we wake up, and then it's just going to be cloudy and not much for the rest of the day.
The FIA weather says something different.
So what does it say?
It says 40% chance of rain all day.
That's just to keep you excited.
Who knows, but that's what it says.
Bring your brolly.
Rosanna.
Look, I spent €7.49 on my brolly earlier, and I intend to use it tomorrow.
I kept my plastic Mac from Singapore last year in my bag, and I'm glad I did this morning.
I actually remember producer Paddy having to buy an emergency, I think it might have been a Ferrari jacket on the way.
It was like €250 or something.
It was so expensive, but it was absolutely pouring down on our walk from the train station to the paddock, and he had no choice. That's how they get you.
But it was the walk back to the station when he was walking down a very Dutch street with a lot of the Orange Army. He stood out somewhat, shall we say, in the red puffer jacket, waterproof. Memories, nostalgia. Well, let's look ahead to tomorrow. It's going to be a cracking race, as Andrew Benson has just outlined. We've got Oscar Piastri starting on pole position, his first pole since the Spanish Grand Prix, lining up alongside his teammate and title rival, Lando Norris. You do not want to miss this one. Abby Pulling, Harry Benjamin, Andrew Benson, thank you so much for joining me to look back on that qualifying session for the Dutch Grand Prix. Do join us tomorrow. We'll have live commentary for you, and we'll be covering it across the BBC. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.